We are back now on the show to continue looking over some of these games that we had in last night's full slate of games, which was one of the best slates I would say that we've had, and I feel like I always say that now with a lot of these games because, like going back a few weeks now, we talked about how everything is so close, and this one was certainly one game that felt like there was a lot more on the line because it was a divisional game, only the second NFC North matchup between any of these teams in the division. The Lions playing against the Minnesota Vikings, the game of the week between two of the best NFC and two of the best NFL teams. I feel like just in general through the first 7 weeks, and the Lions came out on top. The Lions just edged out the Vikings on the road, 31-29. In which the Lions go to first place now over the Minnesota Vikings in that division. Same record, but because of that head-to-head record, the Lions now go to first place at 5-1, while the Vikings suffer their first loss, dropping. I say dropping, but they're still 5-1, which is insane. And technically second in the division, obviously now. And I think this game, unlike other games that we're going to talk about later in the week, this one had just all offense really throughout the entire game. A lot of prolific performances on offense, and really none more than some of these guys I will show you here on the screen. None more than these two guys for the Lions. And why were they so successful? It was because of their quarterback, Jared Goff. He recorded his third straight game without a turnover or without any turnovers and a 140-plus passer rating so far this season. And with that being the case, he joins Aaron Rodgers in 2011, Kurt Warner in 1999, and Roger Staubach in 1971 as the only quarterbacks to do that through 3 straight games to not throw any turnovers and to have a passer rating of 140 plus through those 3 games. So Jared Goff quietly playing as clean as football as you would have ever imagined. And it's weird because a couple weeks ago we talked about how he had more interceptions than passing touchdowns at one point after that Bucs game, I want to say. And now he's been as flawless as you could have asked for. You know, you have this game, you had that game where he went perfect, 18 of 18 against the Seahawks, I believe, at home, and it's been awesome to see, and it's been the driving force for this Lions team. This 31 points by Detroit was the most given up by arguably one of the best, if not the best defense in the NFL for the Vikings. And it was truly impressive. And we had the performances by these two guys on the screen. You know, you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, 116 rushing yards on 15 carries, 2 rushing touchdowns after David Montgomery. I think it was his first game all year where he didn't score a touchdown, and Jahmyr Gibbs stepped up in a big way. David Montgomery also got hurt in this game. I don't think it was anything serious. He did come back, but it did stop him a little bit. But Jahmyr picked up the slack and had a couple big runs. He had a 45-yard run as well that changed the dynamic a lot of this game. Also, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think just another quiet performer that is so consistent in the NFL each and every week. He's putting up crazy numbers. In this one, 8 receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown. And Jared Goff, I didn't actually get to his stats. He was 22 of 25. He has 280 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is, again, another clean game. Only throwing three incompletions is pretty nuts so far. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw some crazy stat where he has more touchdowns than incompletions or something like that over the last few weeks. It was something like that, which is insane. Just harping on my point again about Jared Goff. But we had that on one side. But it wasn't too far off on the other side also for the Vikings, where Sam Darnold had an interception, but he also threw a touchdown. He threw for 259 yards. And we talk about the incompletions for Jared Goff. Sam Darnold only had 5 of them. He was 22 of 27. And that's not to go on too much of a tangent, but those are 2 big reasons why these 2 teams, I believe, are so highly tout in the NFL, at least in my opinion, right? We're talking about efficient, clean football, and why these games are so entertaining is because we see that to the fullest extent with these 2 quarterbacks playing like they are, being as blemish free as you would love to see in the NFL. It's great to see in the NFC North. And in the running game, Aaron Jones had a pretty solid day. 93 yards, had that one touchdown to start things off, and 14 carries. And Justin Jefferson, pretty good game as well. He had 81 yards, 7 receptions, and a touchdown. Jalen Naylor also contributed. Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson should also be coming back in a few weeks as well. He's getting close to a return. But yeah, looking at this game and how it played out, it was like a tale of two halves, really, because Detroit surprised a lot, I'm sure, just right off of the bat, trying to fake punt on their first drive, and it didn't work, obviously, and that failed, and that led to Minnesota having great field position and scoring a touchdown to start things off. It was 7-0 after that, and Detroit punted 2 more times after that, but Minnesota only got 3 points off of those 2 punts, so in hindsight, you'd like those drives to end a little bit better, other than just 3 points. But it was still a 10-0 lead, which proved to be pretty costly because Detroit flipped a 180-degree switch in that second quarter, and they had an awesome stretch of drives in that second quarter where they scored 3 straight touchdowns to make it 21-10, just like that, in an instant, holding Minnesota scoreless. After that field goal that made it 10 points for them, they scored 3 straight touchdowns, and it just in a flash, you kind of didn't know how we got to 21-10 at that point, but it was so sudden that happened. And then also in the second quarter, it was great because it started with a touchdown for the Minnesota Vikings, or by each, I should say, to make the score 28-17. And the Vikings needed something to happen, obviously, on the defensive side to try and steal momentum back. Because after giving up 3 straight touchdowns like that, you put your defense in a spot where, all right, quite fairly, honestly, you put them in a spot that they kind of got themselves in by allowing 3 straight touchdowns. They need to respond now and, make something up after that, because the offense, for whatever reason, they were struggling. Credit to the Lions as well for creating those struggles. But the defense needed to come up with something, right? It was 28-17, and at that point, Minnesota took momentum back after a field goal to make it 28-20. Detroit punted 2 more times after that, and the Vikings defense started to hold a bit more. And after those 2 punts, they had a fumble return for a touchdown late there in the game, which made it 28-19. The Vikings went for a 2-point conversion, but they failed. But still, they hit a field goal, made it 28-23, and then they had that touchdown on that fumble return, making it 29-28. But Minnesota, albeit they had the lead, obviously the ball went back to the Lions. They forced the Lions to punt again, but at that point, Minnesota could not convert either. And after they had Detroit punt, they had that. Ideally, you would have liked that drive to be the last one, right, and just put it to bed, but they couldn't convert on a third down throw that Sam Darnold couldn't hit Justin Jefferson. So they left a lot of time. They went 3 and out. They left 2 minutes and 41 seconds left on the clock as they punted the ball away, obviously being in bad field position. But Detroit took advantage of that fully. They went on an 8-play drive, and they finished it off with a game-winning field goal that ultimately got us to 31-29. And you look at that 2-point conversion right off of the bat, and you might think, well, if you hit that, obviously this game's tied. But I didn't think that was a huge deal because they probably would have lost anyway if they hit it. If they hit that and the 2 drives end up like they did with the Lions punting and the Vikings also punting, this is still like a tie game anyway. So I didn't really think that was a big deal. But the second to last drive, like I said, was really crucial to me because in that moment at home and everything like that, knowing that you just basically almost took away their last gasp of air trying to come back into this game, and you have the ball ideally last in that situation, and you try to convert a first down. It was a failed moment for me, just because if you're not going to convert, if you're not going to get into field goal range or anything like that, at least take some more time off of the clock. But Again, credit to Detroit's defense for making it hard on the Vikings, but it was a quick 3-and-out that I feel like really gave the Lions life, and they obviously took advantage of it by having then the last drive officially of the game and kicking that game-winning field goal. But it was too quick, especially because the Lions only needed 3 points to win the game. It went too fast for me. But what I found really impressive from the Lions goes back to those 3 touchdowns that we saw in the second quarter, because all of those were not only touchdowns, obviously, right, but they were all 5+ plays drives. They were all 5 or more plays in each of those drives, and they were each 69 or more yards for each drive, which really is asserting your dominance on that defense, which again was one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL. And to go on those 3 straight drives and kind of punch back in a major way after you're down 10-0, it was so impressive to me to see that, and really just give me more assurance that this Lions team really is probably the best offense in the NFL. I don't think that's too crazy to say. And it's constantly also finding those answers to the blitzes, which the Vikings are notorious to doing. A lot of different looks that they give at the line of scrimmage. And for the Lions to be so well prepared to find the answers and find quick receptions to each of those blitzes is another reason why, Ben Johnson and just this offense that they've built with Amon-Ra, with Jahmyr, and the best offensive line in the NFL. It's hard to think of a better situation. And also on the defensive end, I can't fail to mention Brian Branch, who has been playing amazing. If you don't know who that is, number 32 for the Lions, a safety sort of slot corner that does it all for them. He had an interception in this game, and he's just been playing great as well on the defensive side of the ball. But I think at this point, I would say that the Lions are the best team in the NFC. Before this, I picked the Vikings to win this game, so they would have been the best team in the NFC. But from what I saw from the Lions, standing up to this defense, they're probably the most complete team in the NFC, or they just have such a powerful offense that it's hard to beat them, even if they do give up like 29 points or something, or even more points against the Seahawks. It almost doesn't matter. But I'm not giving up hope or mailing it in on the Vikings. These two teams are probably the 2 best in the NFC, and arguably the Packers are the 3rd best, which is insane for how good that division is and how good the Packers are looking. All of those games are going to be awesome. They're probably all going to end up like these scores and these kind of numbers that we have for these players. But the Lions take this one. The Vikings beat the Packers in a high-scoring game. Now they lose a high-scoring game to the Lions, and once the Lions play the Packers, it's probably going to be more of the same, which is going to be awesome. But we'll leave that game there. One of the best games that we had in the slate yesterday. But we have one more game to go over. The scoreline doesn't suggest a great game, but the storyline around the Eagles and the Giants game, we had to talk about it. Saquon reminding everybody in New York why they should have re-signed him. Big performance from him, but also a lot of just bad moments for the Giants that we're going to talk about. So that'll be the last thing we mention on today's show. We'll be right back quickly after this break.